Okay, Alan, I'm going to try to shut up now. I'm just so wound up about what's happening because I have never let my family, my children have never flown because I won't have them strip searched or beat up, or they're always killing people in the TSA, and I can't watch them humiliated, taking their shoes off and being indoctrinated to be slaves for the next phase of being naked body scanned. And they use the instrumentality of a machine like that makes it okay. Be like instead of a cop shooting you in the head, he had a robot shooting you in the head, so it's okay. It's men looking at a screen of your naked body and saving it. It's even worse than a strip search. It'd be like if they led you in and stripped you and videotaped it and laughed at you. How do we beat this? How do we resist it? How do we not just contribute to the Stockholm syndrome of covering all of this, and then people just get hopeless? How do we fight back? How do we defeat these people? Then I want to get into how worldwide, from Germany to New York State, they're arresting homeschooling parents for no reason in big public rage, trumping up fake charges. I'm going to give the number out to that county coming up, folks, for people to call later. Alan, I mean, they are moving on us on every front. Copenhagen was mainly a defeat, but Gordon Brown said, I don't care if you didn't sign on, we're still going to implement it. Alan Watt.
Yes. Again, people have to realize that you're not a nobody. No one is a nobody. And that's been the technique that's been used for so long, is to make us all think we're nobodies. And that special people that come out of special wombs are up there to guide you and manage your lives for you. We have been taught since the 60s onwards to be children, perpetual children. Don't get involved in politics, ignore it, just have a good time and play. And now it's all coming home, because you have people now who are at that stage of mentality but have never matured. A lot of people out there have never matured. They're living now as they did when they were 18 years of age, even if they're 40. So we're aiming at the people who can still think, who still have a sense of self-respect and know how to give it back to people who have lost it along the way, their own self-respect. Government exists by the will of the people. Government is only an idea. That's all it is. And it only gets away with it. It's like money. If you have faith that that money works and someone will accept it, then things will work. If you have faith in the government, it will work. But if you give complete faith to government, it will work in its own way and not for your benefit. However, it still only exists because you allow it to exist. And that's got to get pushed home to these boys at the top. They know this too. They're preparing for all kinds of possible scenarios. They've thought through the whole next 50 years agenda, and they're preparing for all possible outcomes. But what they don't want is a passive yet subtly aggressive push and mass demonstrations for people to take back their rights and to put the government back in its place. And every government in the world has got to start putting down on its books the recall of people who do not fulfill their promises in elections. When they go off on some strange tangent, as soon as they're in office, they should be out the door immediately.
Instead of, in England, the left and right, in the U.S., the left and right, most people are still caught up. They hate the party that's in power. They vote for the party out of power. Then they hate that party. They vote for the next party. It's all staged. We have to have a paradigm shift and stop looking at the low-level puppets and see the real architecture of enslavement.
Yes, and we've got to get the big foundations and the CFR and the Royal Institute of International Affairs totally out of politics. In fact, they should be outlawed, to be honest with you, because they've been behind the last 100 years of guiding this whole world and every country in it into this mandated global society of a socialist-type formula with its eugenics agenda, with its takedown of populations to a manageable level, as they call it. These guys have no place in politics. We don't vote them in, and yet here they are with all their members inside the political bureaus and establishments. They've got to be outlawed completely.
And they are parasites, and they love the fact that they're in the process of disarming us, as is happening in Canada right now. Alan, you talk a lot about how they, and this is in their own documents, again, Charlotte Iserbyt's book's full of the documents, about how they're turning man against woman, woman against man, black against white, Muslim against Jew, Catholic against Protestant, Northerner against Southerner, always balkanizing everyone. Here's an article, and give me a document cam shot for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. France to criminalize shouting at your wife. Married couples could be arrested and charged for insulting each other under a new law. In France, banning psychological violence. And in the U.S., they're starting to take people's kids if they're seen yelling at them, even if it isn't against the law. And then it says right here that it's going to be implemented with a ticket the first time and then jail time and then huge fines. And it says that they're encouraging men and women to tattle on each other. And women are being taught, your husband's arguing with you, call the police. And so, again, they are literally moving forward with this agenda. I wanted to read one part. Police are being urged to issue a caution in the first instance of a reported crime of raising their voice, but repeated offenses could face a fine or electronic tagging or jail. See, all these petty things that aren't even crimes, everybody's got to be tagged.
Yeah, well, I tell you, people have to stop being politically correct. This is all training people to be politically correct, and they keep updating it off because they know where they're going with it all, into a robotic society. But it's also to make sure that you cannot live outside the government control. In other words, if you're going to have an argument, you must have a professional counselor there to have it. Otherwise,
well, now they're saying out of 60 million or 50 million French, whatever it is, pull up the population number of France. They're saying 157 French men and women killed each other in 2008, and we can't allow that. Like one underwear bomber, all our rights leave, they naked scan us. And now we may have to ban marriage and make everybody live in dormitories because every once in a while people kill each other. And oh my gosh, sometimes parents abuse babies. So 20,000 homes in England, now at birth, cameras go in your home until the kids leave when they're 18, and the government watches you.
That's right.
See, oh, well, my God, sometimes people fight, so we've just got to ban this institution. They're actually talking about it.
It was back in the 1960s, in the American Psychological Association's own magazine. They said in the 60s, eventually they will put cameras in every citizen's homes. And it will pick up any signs of aggression, such as your mouth going down, the eyes narrowing, and they will have intervention teams that will come in straight away before anything happens. Now, we've got to understand, we're simply following through a script here. It's an intergenerational script. It's updated for each generation. And it's not happening by the moment, happenstance, with some strange new idea that came out of Parliament or Congress. It was implemented and written into UN various constitutions 40, 50, 60 years ago.
And now they're announcing their world government. By the way, France has 61.5 million people. And now, Ellen, why are they now coming right out and saying, Van Rompuy, the head of the EU, Gore, Gordon Brown, they're all saying global governance is here.
Yep.
They announced at the conference, yes, we want it to be a global one-child policy. Yes, we want to shut down the money so you can't afford to have children, and then we'll CPS them if you're poor. And yes, this is really all about population reduction, and now Austin has announced the city. Yes, we don't want to build new roads. We're going to force you to take buses. We are your social engineers. We own your butt.
Yeah, again, a very old agenda. They were written but years ago of how they would do this, in fact, and how they would implement it by stages as they gradually altered the perceptions of each generation.
So why are they now announcing it? Why are they getting so bold? Why is everything moving 10 times faster?
They really believe now it's time. They believe now it's time. See, a long time ago, they said that 2012 was when the UN would come up to its full power and be accepted by the world. They think it's now ready to be accepted by the various populaces of the world. And they're almost right. Most countries will go along because they're so beaten down by everything. They probably will just go along with it. In fact, they'll think, what can we do? We haven't protested anything for years. Most countries have not protested anything for years. So they've been trained to comply and comply and comply. So at the top, they do believe they're ready to accept global governance.
You're right. And Alan, now suddenly, as you know, on CNN, Fox, they're going, the Japanese are looking at putting lithium in the water, an antipsychotic. Yeah. And the lady on the show says, I think it's a good idea. And suddenly they're going, yeah, we are going to put statins in the water and Prozac. And yeah, Prozac is in water supplies that don't have runoff that it shouldn't be. Guess it's going to make you feel better. They're just titrating the dose. For those that don't know, to get used to, say, cobra bites, they give people small amounts of the venom and build it up. And I believe that's why they let Ventura have the TV show. He means well, I mean well, but they believe it's now time to throw it in your face. That's why they're not too worried about me, because they believe it's now time to throw it in your face. I just want to ask the controllers and the bureaucrats that get petty power out of this, who are compartmentalized, do you like giving your kids tap water, in some cases over 300 deadly chemicals, but on average 150 plus? Do you like the fact that your boys are effeminate? And a lot of them don't even have a sperm count by the time they're 20. Do you like the fact that everybody's dying of cancer? I mean, do you really like this? But see, it's a psychological trick. They get off on the fact that they feel like they're part of it.
And they also, most people go into denial. They cannot believe that the masters above them would be so bad as to actually do this deliberately. In fact, the masters count on the public, saying, well, they're always screwing up. It's got to be a mistake. They wouldn't have meant to do that. And, of course, they did mean to do that, because Julian Huxley said in the 1950s